So behind me is a Frontier, in front of me is a Pathfinder. For the most part, you know, on the front end at least, they're pretty well the same, which is one of the reasons I have them. I like that. Today, we're doing front struts on the Pathfinder. So I'm going to show you. This is what we're dealing with right here. Now this side we've already done. Ish. It's not torqued in. Things aren't quite done. But I wanted to show you a few things if you're getting into this job. I do need to say, I am not a teacher of all things auto repair. You should not come to me for too much advice. I generally don't give advice because I don't know enough. I usually learn from other people. But the goal of this video is basically to show you, if you got some time, you got some tools, and you got some tenacity, you might be able to pull it off. The other reason I make them is someday my kids hopefully will watch these stupid things and think, that's what Dad was doing to save us a little money the other day. Because I'm not fond of vehicle payments. So we have old cars. So we're back in here. It's pretty simple. I actually took the inner fender wheel well cover thingy off on this side because there are 3 bolts up here that have to come off. And this one right here was just bugging me. And I didn't want to strip it. If I took the inner cover off, I could get it from above. Now on the other side, which I'm going to show you the old part, not the new part installed and kind of how to do it, I don't think I'm going to need to take the inner fender off. This is the driver's side. Anyway, it's installed. Things aren't torqued. This bolt right here, I've done a repair on either this or a Frontier or a parts version of this that involves taking this bolt out. Oh, probably 6 times. Only once have I gotten the bolt out successfully without some form of cutting. Here's the old bolt. There's the nut. Would not come off any further than that. It moved. It gave me hope. The bolt itself was not seized in the bushing. They usually are, but this one wasn't, and I was all excited. I cleaned the threads up. It got to right there, and it quit coming, and the cutting tools came out. Now, normally when I cut these, which is almost every time, I have to cut both sides inside, right here and right here, because it's seized in the bushing. This one was kind. It was not, so we just cut the head off it and drove it out. We moved on with our life. But I say all that to say this. If you're going to take this repair on, it wouldn't hurt you to have a couple of those bolts in reserve, which I happen to have because I knew someday I'd be doing this repair. So just keep that in mind. You may end up cutting if you live somewhere like I do where you use salt on the road. If you're somewhere warm, non-salty, I'm really jealous. But if you're somewhere where things rust, which we are, you may want to source a couple bolts and nuts before you start this job, because you may end up cutting, and if so, you may end up needing them. Okay, here we are on the other side. This one has not been touched. Inner fender's still in. We're going to try it with the cover on. We're going for those 3 bolts, which we're going to clean up because that's years of undercoating and road grime. Clean the other side, not spun right off, no problem at all. Down here, I'm not as hopeful. We may end up cutting that one, but we'll see. I'd love to save it, keep it as a spare, so the next time I have to cut it, you know, we're not in a mess. One thing I will show you, both sides. If you take out the top of your sway bar link, mine's an 18 mil, it just comes right out. You can swing your sway bar down out of the way, because if you don't, your sway bar is conveniently in the way of getting that bolt out. So before you even start this job, make sure you can get your top link off both sides, because if you can't, you're not getting that bolt out and you're not getting it back in, which, you know, would be a fairly frustrating experience, I would have to imagine. A couple other things I'd recommend is taking note of a few things before you remove it. The first of which is the geometry as they say, of these 3 bolts. It is such that it will only fit one way, and likely on your new part, there's going to be a little rubber tab, which I'll show you, that will line up in the back here between these 2 bolts that are closer together than they are to this one. That's important. There's going to be a step, a little jog right there. And if you read the service manual, which you should, it's going to say the step needs to face outside the vehicle. That's what it's talking about. I don't give torque values and all that stuff because that would presume I know what I'm talking about. So I don't give those when I make this video. I'm just a guy working on a dirt floor trying to save some money and say to you, you can probably do this. I don't give them to force you to go look them up or find somebody else on the internet that you don't know who they are, what their credentials are, and foolishly trust them. That's up to you. But go look them up. The manuals are free, nicoclub.com. They're not hard to find. Learn to read one, then you know. And you're not trusting somebody like me that you've never met, that has no credentials to tell you something that could ruin your vehicle. So I'm not gonna do that, but they're easily accessible online. That's why I don't give them. Go check it out, because mostly this is just for entertainment and to tell you, you can maybe do it, I guess. Like, I don't know you, but probably. Okay, again, this is passenger side. On the driver's side, I took the inner fender off. I came in from the top with a series of extensions and whatnot, but above this is like a battery and a fuse box. You just can't do that. And things aren't quite the same over here. So a little extension, a little elbow grease. We cleaned the top of that threads up, and it looks like, fingers crossed, this nut's gonna come off. Now, you're gonna notice the socket I'm using is gonna top out right there, which is very annoying. So I'm not gonna finish this nut first. I'm gonna do it last, because I'm gonna end up having to leave that socket there till I get this off. And I wanna use that socket on the other three. But that's the hardest bolt, so I tried it first. We're gonna move on to the other two. Little bit of, there it is. The torque on these is not very high. So hopefully the years of rust and road grime don't give you too much trouble if you live in a place like me. Just patience and whatnot. You should be able to maybe get them off. I wish you the best. And there you go, they're all out. Now, as this dropped a little bit, it actually did give my socket back, which was nice. On the other side, it didn't. There's no real pressure, just the weight of the control arms on this. And I should have said, but again, not giving advice, don't mess with springs unless you know that you're guarded. And in this case, I'm doing the whole strut assembly. So that spring's fine. There's no pressure on this system. We're gonna move down here. I think it's a 19 mil, but who really knows? Oh, and also right here, and these three, I hit with penetrating fluid a couple days in a row, because, you know, you can see undercoating, rust, blah, blah, blah. And I think it helped. So we're gonna clean that up and give her a shot. Okay, for those of you silly enough to try this, I'm gonna show you what I've done on the passenger side. It doesn't work on the driver's side because of the way that things are, but anyway. I've got a bar, and it's right up in behind the knuckle. There's a little groove, it'll sit right there. A deep socket on this side. I got a bar with a shallow socket on this side, and I've got a jack supporting the suspension, because if you don't, all your effort's just gonna move with the spring, and that's annoying. And then I just put a I'm not asking bar on, and a quarter turn at a time. It's coming. My knuckles aren't bloody yet. There've been no bad words. For those of you that are, you know, live a life of faith, I've found it to be a very sanctifying experience, if you know what I mean. And we just carry on. It'll come off eventually, or it'll strip, and we'll get the cutting tools out. The good news is, see that bolt right there? It's coming out of the bushing, which means if the nut comes off, this might be the easiest one I've ever done, which would be awesome. There you have it. The bolt is right there. And I am way more excited about this than is merited, especially considering I've got a new bolt and I'm going to use a new bolt. This is the second time I've taken one of those out up here where the salt and rust are, and it's actually come out and not been seized in the bushing and not stripped a nut off. So this is a big deal to me. I greased it, as you can see. I'm going to chuck it in a bin of bolts that I think I might use again, but probably never will. For those days when I'm really, really stuck and I need one, we're going to pull this out and we're going to put the new one in. And, you know, getting it out, you'll chew and jaw a little bit, but if you can get it to slide down in there just a little bit, it'll drop and the top will come out from underneath. It just takes a little bit of, you know, just whatever. I don't know what it takes, but you've got it. You can probably do it, maybe. I don't know. There you have it. The old one's out. You might find if you turn this, you know, your steering just a little bit, might give you the right combination of space and lock to get that out of there a little easier. Who knows? I'm going to clean that up. I'm going to put this one in. That step goes out. That little rubber tab that we talked about goes in. Now, that only matters if you're the one putting the strut mount on, which on a quick strut you're not. And then this just says, make sure you rotate it so that it fits either side, but this one's already rotated conveniently. If you buy them by the pair, you might find, you know, one is for one side, one's for the other. We're gonna put some, instead of never come off juice, I'm gonna use some please come off someday if I have to take you off again juice, some never sees or something on those. And actually on the whole boat, the shank and the threads and the whole nine on this, because again, they usually season the bushings. Put it in there, we're gonna look up our torque values and then start buttoning things back up. Okay, there it is. 3 in, 1 in. They're all covered in that never seesy stuff. Please come off later. Don't forget to hook your links back up. You'll find, you know, your ride will change significantly if you do versus don't. I'm also gonna grease some stuff while I'm in here, whatever's got a grease fitting. But right now, I'm gonna go have lunch because I just want to. Then I'm gonna come back. I haven't torqued either side. I'm just gonna do that all at once. So look up your torque values. And you're like, well, Jumpin's dude, you're about to do it. Why can't you tell us? Well, I'm not gonna tell you because I don't make these videos to give advice. I make them because, well, it's like a service record for my vehicle. It shows me, you know, when I can't sleep at night and I wonder what I did or didn't do, I can watch them back. And, you know, it shows my kids you can probably do it. And maybe it'll inspire you too, but not to give advice. The best advice, the only advice really that I have to give is you should not take my advice. Or any other random Joe on the internet with no credentials. If they got credentials as long as you're Aaron, fine. But factory service manuals for a Nissan are free. NicoClub.com, you can download whatever you want. Don't take some random knucklehead's advice off the internet. Just go look it up. No problem. Okay, here we are, 17 and a half hours later. No, it didn't take that long. I had a lunch break. Haven't moved that fast. Frankly, not that you care, but haven't been feeling that good lately. And this repair, well, it was still possible. It's really not that hard. Let me show you what we're dealing with. This is what it looks like. Dispose of your old one, you know, properly. You recycle it and such in the scrap metal pile that once a year will go to the dealer. Everything is torqued. The 3 up top are torqued. This one down here is torqued. And the sway bar link is reinstalled. Oh, look, a socket and torqued. And there we go. We've greased the stuff that should be greased. We've noted that this sway bar link is very dry and should be changed very soon. But that's another time, another day. Let's have grease fittings. Anyway, everything's good. Torque values, well, that one's a lot. This one up here, not much, and that one right there is somewhere in the middle. Again, look them up. It'll do you good. This inner fender, as it turns out, with a different configuration of sockets, as some of you may have guessed and already commented before you watched the end of the video. I could have gotten to this one, but I really didn't want to strip it. So I wanted to come straight down on it. That's why I took this out. When I torqued it back in, I didn't come from the top. I used a deep 3/8 and it fit and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. But there it is. So here's the takeaway. Number one, you probably watched this whole video hoping for more help than you got. And to that I say, you were warned at the start. Number two, you might be able to do it. Maybe. I mean, I don't know you, but probably. Number three, have an extra bolt. Yep. Because, you know, cutting, rust, that kind of thing. And number four, well, I didn't plan this out, and I don't even know if I have a number 4, to be honest with you. But that's that.